Oh, you're so sweet, I swear. Te mando un besito.
All right, cool. We're on Disco Acid Cult TV. Got a few things I want to go over today. Dude, this is like a couple days after I put up the Tommy Lee video, and we already have more Motley Crue nonsense, which I guess makes perfect sense. Anybody wanting to become a YouTuber out there, if you're looking for like a subject that will provide you with unlimited stuff to talk about, Motley Crue seems to be one of those bands you can always stick with. Even today. And it's mostly two members that seem to have, well, it's mostly one member that always has drama. The rest of them kinda get pulled into it. I don't know. Motley Crue's like consistent drama has changed over the years. You know, like back in the 80s, of course, it was very self-imposed. It seemed like they were kind of intentionally the drama guys. That was their thing. Nowadays, it really seems like they're like a magnet. They can't avoid it. It's kind of the impression that I get. You know, I talked about in the video how Vince Neil, especially, seems to, from what I see, like my impression, he seems to be tired of the drama. Even there's you can find him on YouTube. There's like two appearances they did on the Howard Stern show, I think in like 2004 and 2005, like all the way back then. You can just see that Vince Neil is just tired of this shit. You know, Howard Stern. So of course he's asking them questions, you know, pretty gross questions about their personal lives and their sex lives, and you can just tell that Vince Neil has just had it. You know, he's just like, I got a nice house. I'd rather just be at home, but I got to do this Howard Stern shit. And ever since then, even it's just every time I see Vince Neil doing anything, any kind of interview. I just watched an interview with Motley Crue. It was with like Bubba Ray Dudley. I think it was like Busted Open Radio. I don't know. I like wrestling, so I know who Bubba Ray Dudley is. But even then, you know, Vince Neil just seems like he's just doing his job. So it's funny that the drama now is a little bit of Vince Neil. I was gonna make a whole separate video for it, but there's not enough about the Vince Neil thing for a whole video. The Tommy Lee story, you know, I there's a whole hour of like I was able to talk about that shit for an hour after editing it. But one, because there's so much video. The Brittany Furlan Tommy Lee story is like exactly what I want when I'm looking for stories to talk about. Um, 1, it's drama, but 2, it's also funny. 3, it's rock stars, right? It's rock and roll, it's Tommy Lee. I haven't really been a fan of Ronnie Radke since high school, but I'm aware of who he is. I know plenty about him. And then the biggest thing was that it was completely void of politics. It's hard to find a story nowadays that has no politics. Like even today, I plan on getting into. I've got to talk about the Candace Owens interview with Harvey Weinstein. You know, it's damn near impossible to find like a pop culture story that doesn't involve politics nowadays. So I was very excited to find that Tommy Lee Brittany Furlan story. That was just a classic Hollywood drama, celebrities doing dumb shit story. There was no politics. You know, it was just celebrities being unfaithful to their spouses. And it just so happened that one of them happened to be a musician who I've looked up to for a long time, so that was perfect. The Vince Neil story is a lot less interesting, obviously. Now that I'm live and there's no editing, people will see how slow I am to pull up screens. Let me see. Let me throw myself down here. I guess I wasn't too slow. That wasn't too bad. Yeah, Vince Neil splits from longtime girlfriend Rain Hannah. Nobody should name their daughter Rain, first of all. You just shouldn't. Just for like context in this, because this will kind of get into something I'm going to bring up in a little bit. Rain Hannah was 43, or she is 43 right now. And Vince Neil, I think, is 64. Yeah, Vince Neil is 64 and Rain Hannah is 43. So, yeah, according to TMZ, sources close to the 64. the article answers my question immediately. I could have just scrolled down, but I don't think about these things. 64-year-old rocker claim he was the only, or he was the one who initiated the split after learning of a rumored affair. So yeah, it sounds like his younger girlfriend was cheating on him. Uh, she's younger and hotter, but she's not quite Brittany Ferlin. Younger and hotter, like like this is more believable to see Vince Neil with this girl. I would say, I guess not that it's unbelievable to see Tommy Lee with a girl like Brittany Ferlin, but yeah, there was no way I could have stretched out and made a whole video about this. It's literally just somebody in Vince Neil's circle kind of started getting the idea or learning about Vince Neil's girlfriend might be cheating on him, and apparently there was enough that Vince Neil was able to say, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's cheating on me." So, he called it off with her. He breaks up with her. This does come just a couple months after that whole. Remember that plane crash? Vince Neil's plane, his private jet crashed, and it had this girl in it. Vince Neil was not in it, but Ray and Hannah was in it. That's when I made the joke about imagine being that much of a rock star that your girlfriend needs a ride, and she goes to open up Uber on her phone, and you're like, no, hold up, you could just take the plane. It's all good. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe after Vince's private jet crashed with her in it, she said, Vince is not enough. I need to find a new man with a better plane. Maybe she's been cheating with a guy with a better private jet. I don't think this says who she was cheating with. I don't even think we know anything about that. Oh yeah, here's the plane thing. The breakup comes just months after a harrowing incident that could have ended in tragedy. Rain, of course, her age is included in this article too, and I didn't even think to just scroll down. Was aboard Neil's private plane when it crashed into Arizona. The thing that's hilarious is that Vince Neil's plane crashed into Vince Vaughn's plane. I feel like that didn't get enough. There's got to be some witchy girls out there, some like witchy Los Angeles girls who believe in magic and astrology and all that. I've got to find one of them. I've got to find one witchy girl. If there are any witchy LA girls out there who believe in astrology, please tell me how Vince Neil's plane crashed into Vince Vaughn's plane. There has to be something going on there, right? Am I right? There's got to be something going on with the Vince thing. Um, but that's not the best part of the story. That's whatever. Vince and his girlfriend break up. Looks like she was stepping out on him. The best part of the story is actually that I think like 2 days after the breakup, maybe we get a TMZ article talking about Vince Neil holding hands with 2 women. This is how you recover. This is how you properly recover. Unlike me, who's been caught up on an ex-girlfriend for going on 6 years now, this is the proper way to do it. This is the proper way to handle a breakup. It doesn't seem Vince Neil is letting his split with his longtime partner get him down, because we have pics of him strolling through Nashville while holding hands with 2 women. I like how there's 2 women dash dash at the same time. Vince's like profile from the back, right? The picture of Vince from the back really does a lot to cover up his gut. Like, look at this picture here. He looks like he looks like a divorced father with the beer gut. But then you see him from the back and he looks fairly in shape. That is crazy. That is crazy. If Vince could get rid of the gut, he'd be a lot better off. That's really all it is. It's not like he's fat. He's just got the gut. This is a great picture too. They both look younger than him too. You got a hot blonde. This is classic Vince Neil. Couldn't choose between the hot blonde and the hot brunette. This is classic Vince Neil. The ponytail. Nothing says I'm tired of rock star life more than a ponytail. Vince Neil, whenever you see Vince Neil not singing on stage, he has a lazy ponytail with a hat on. He's got the lazy ponytail sticking out the back of the hat. That's like the Vince Neil signature with the white shorts. Nothing says I'm tired of being a rock star than white shorts with a lazy ponytail sticking out the back of a hat. This is how you know Vince Neil is tired of the drama. He's not trying to do this shit anymore. He just wants to walk around Nashville with his 2 girlfriends. That's all he wants to do. And imagine living a life where, like, you just go out and people are just taking pictures of you. People are just taking pictures of you. I mean, obviously, these guys have to be used to this shit, but that seems crazy to me. You can't go out for a date with your 2 girlfriends without somebody just taking pictures of you from across the street. Good times, though, good times. So, I think the funny thing about the story is that 2 members of Motley Crue get cheated on within a week, and there has to be something said about how Vince Neil and Tommy Lee are both rich and famous, right? These guys are both multimillionaires, some of the most famous musicians of all time, and even they can't stop girls from cheating on them. So it seems that it's not good enough to be rich and famous, but you also have to be young. I think that's what's going on here. I would imagine Rain Hannah was also cheating with a younger guy. Like I said, they don't really say who she was cheating with. Obviously, in Brittany Furlan's case, it was with Ronnie Radke. Brittany Furlan is 38 and Ronnie Radke is 41, and then Tommy Lee is 62, I think. So I would imagine Rain was cheating with a guy that was closer to her age too. But that's got to be a topic. That's got to be something that, like, somebody smarter than me could turn into an intellectual conversation. Like, how are these rich, famous guys getting cheated on? It's got to have something to do with the fact that they're just not young enough anymore. They're not young enough to stop girls from cheating on them. Sometimes it's really not just money. Sometimes girls really do need that 21-year-old hairline and those six-pack abs. Sometimes the money is not enough to make up for the Vince Neil gut with the lazy ponytail. It's a sad world, though. It's a sad world, though, where being rich and famous is not quite good enough. You know, I think every guy aspires to be rich and famous so that he can have his pick of the girls. But, you know, sure, you might get your pick of the girls, but you might not quite be her pick of the fellas, I guess. She might step out. That's really it. That's really it. What are we, like, 14 minutes in? Yeah, no, there's not much about the Vince Neil thing. It's funny that it happened right after the Tommy Lee thing. I'm sure Vince was happy about that, because like I said, I do believe that Vince is tired of rock star tabloid life. So I'd imagine he was kind of excited to do this. You know what? And it says Vince broke up with his girlfriend. I wonder if Vince strategically did this when he did it. Like, if he had been planning on breaking up with her, and then the Tommy Lee stuff happened, and he said, "Oh, now's a good chance to kind of slide under the radar. I'll break up with my girlfriend while everybody's talking about Tommy Lee." You know, I could see him doing that. I don't think Vince really cares what Tommy's got going on. I don't think Vince and Tommy like each other. No matter how much they will say so in interviews. That's a whole other topic, though. But anyways, yeah, I'd be curious about that now. Maybe Vince broke up with his girlfriend when he did because he thought now was a good chance to slide right under the radar, you know? Uh, all right, well, I'm gonna go in order. So I have to do the Lorde interview with Rolling Stone. Oh god, this is gonna be a slog. It's gonna be a fucking slog, and I'm not looking forward to this. Lorde wants you to know that she is an intense bitch. Lorde The thing that sucks about Lorde is that Lorde hasn't done anything cool since the Pure Heroin album, which I think is her first album. Um, but the thing is that first album, right? Her first album is like, okay, she had an EP before that, but it is her first full length album. But the thing is, the Pure Heroin album in 2013, I graduated high school in 2012. So I was a Forever 21 hipster in 2013. So I can speak to this. Lord's first album, Pure Heroin, is the reason that we're all here. She is like the one that started, well, at least for this era, she's the one that was I can't really explain it perfectly. You know those indie pop girl singers, those sad girl singers, they've got the soft, delicate voice and they pronounce everything kind of funny, and that all comes from Lorde. You know, that all comes from Teams, which is her best song, by the way, or I think it's just Team. Royals, I don't really like Royals. Team is a way better song. The second single is always the best. Like the second less popular single is always the best. With My Chemical Romance, Famous Last Words is better than The Black Parade. With Nirvana, Come As You Are is better than Smells Like Teen Spirit. With I could go on, you know. Team is better than Royals. But yeah, Lorde is the reason that we're all here. Lorde is like the godmother of the Forever 21 hipster era that has now turned into, you know, like Chapel Roan, and actually that's probably a terrible comparison. You know, there's videos on Instagram making fun of it. The way that these female indie singers pronounce their words funny, you know, and they sing kind of delicately. That's all Lorde. Like Lorde started all of this. But Lorde is falling off. I think Lorde is falling off pretty hard. Nothing she's done has ever, you know, what was her next album in 2017? Melodrama. Who the fuck has ever listened to Melodrama? Then she had an album in 2021 called Solar Power that literally the album cover is just a picture of her ass. It's an upward shot. They put the camera on the ground and Lorde steps over it and there's her ass. And even that wasn't enough to do it for her. Yeah, one album wonder. And the thing is, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking shit about a one album wonder or a one hit wonder. I wish I had a one hit wonder. You know, imagine you put out one song or one album and you get to live in a mansion for the rest of your life because of it, you know. So no disrespect to the one hit album or the one hit wonder or the one album wonder. That is the way it is. And I think now she's trying to be cool. It kind of reminds me of Katy Perry. I heard somebody say this recently. Katy Perry is also kind of fallen on hard times. You know, she's cringe. She went up to space for 11 seconds or whatever the fuck that was. She keeps trying to be cool. She keeps looking for her viral moment. She keeps talking about these trendy topics, and people are just like, just sing your songs from 2008 again and shut up. That seems to be, I think, what's going on with Lorde. Just play team, play Royals, you know. Don't tell us about how you're an intense bitch. You know, nobody cares. Her album is coming out. It's called Virgin, because of course it is. Why wouldn't she call her next album Virgin? There's like one this is such a long fucking article. I can't believe I picked this. There's one part in this that I'm gonna get to that I think is the main thing I was gonna get at. Oh god. Rolling Stone is really falling on hard times too. You know, they have to describe the setting on an unusually freezing April day in New York. Just get to the fucking interview. Like, we don't need to hear about the day in New York. It's crazy that people barely put out albums anymore, you know, especially nowadays. People really put out singles. But Lorde puts out an album like every 4 or 5 years. Makes me think like, dude, the Beatles used to put out albums like I think in the same year, didn't they? They sometimes had an album out in the same year. I could be wrong, but I know, you know, bands used to put out a lot more. You know, I mean, yeah, I mean, you had the White Album in '68, Abbey Road '69, Let It Be '70, Revolver was '66, right before Magical Mystery Tour in '67. It just seems like people used to put out music way more often than they are now. For her last album, 2021 Solar Power, yeah, that's the one where she put her ass on the cover and still didn't really, you know, nobody cared. It is a great album cover. I will say it's a great album cover. It's a great picture of her ass. It's just not enough to sell albums, which says a lot that we're in a time now where putting your ass on an album cover is not enough anymore. Like people are like, I've seen enough asses, you know, there's enough ass out there. I'm not going to buy this album. You know, any other time throughout history, you put an ass on an album cover, it's selling 1,000,000 copies. People are buying that album. It's got an ass on the cover, and it's a great album cover too. You know, like I said, it's a perfect upskirt shot of her. But even that's not enough in 2021 to sell. No one cares anymore. No one cares about ass anymore. You know, think about that. When your grandkids ask you what it was like back in your day, you're gonna tell them, dude, girls abused the ass to the point where it wouldn't even sell albums anymore. Yeah, see, and they're still talking about Royals, when she became a brooding pop phenom. Or brooding, that's a good word to explain the kind of style that she started. And for years, all the pop stars have wanted to be, you know, like these brooding singers like Lorde used to be. You know, Lorde is kind of cringe now, especially since that viral video came out where she's like shushing the crowd because she wanted to do her whole acapella thing. Everyone's seen it. I know you've seen it. Like I said, I don't feel like pulling all this shit up, but there's one part I was gonna get to, I guess, specifically in this, and I was gonna complain about it. Um, I guess I should have saved exactly where it was in the article. The article's so fucking long too, and none of it's really about music. It's all just about, you know, this is that article. I won't get into it because I'm like not established enough as a guy on YouTube to talk about this topic. But you know, she talks about the whole, I don't know, some conversation with Chapel Roan where Lord declares that she's a woman except for the days that she's a man, and people were like, "Oh," but even that's the funny thing. Even that wasn't like a splash. Like you heard about that for like a day, and then it went away. Whereas like if that came out in 2020, people would have been saying that, you know, Lord is a fucking hero. You know, she's a fucking icon. But I think people are just like, dude, I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, I think every female singer has called themselves a man now at one point or another. You know, no shade. I think people are just like, okay, like the last female singer said that. So, like, what's your album sound like? You know, I don't think people care anymore. There's going to be a lot of people who don't think I'm a good girl anymore. What does that even mean, Lord? What does that even mean? Where did Lord get this impression that people thought she was a good girl in the first place? Like, I didn't realize this was a thing. Man, these interviews just aren't the same. Anytime I go through one of these like modern day artist interviews, I have to like after this stream, I'm gonna go watch like interview with Kurt Cobain. You know, because I have to purge myself. I have to cleanse. It's like washing my hands. What is this? Is this how she's singing? I mean, she's got a mixer. There's a microphone. Is this how she sang on the new album? Is this how she got that? Why can't I get this fucking subscribe pop up to go away? Oh, there we go. I got it to go away. Yeah, I mean, if this is how you're recording your albums, this is why they're not selling anymore. Yeah. You should stand up straight, get in your singing position. Why are you singing like that? Covering up the mirrors in her home instead of facing herself. Talk about rich people stuff. I don't even have time throughout my day to cover up the mirrors in my house to avoid seeing myself. This is what they call privileged problems. I don't even think about that. I pass by the mirror in my bathroom. I'm like, "Oh, I should clean that mirror." But I don't have time. I don't have time to cover up the mirrors in my house. That reminds me of that, you know, I used to love Jimmy Butler back when Jimmy Butler played on the Chicago Bulls. And there was some cheesy fucking article years ago where he was talking about how he got rid of the rear view mirror in his car because he didn't wanna look backward anymore. He wanted to look forward. He didn't wanna look behind him. I'm like, "Oh my god." Like, dude, real people don't have time for this shit. Real people don't go around their house covering up the mirrors instead of facing themselves. It's just like, God, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Again, to contrast it with, like, Nirvana interviews, like I just mentioned, there's a great interview with Nirvana where they're talking to the band about the accusations of selling out. You know, whenever a band back in the 90s signed to a major label, all people would say, "Oh, you're selling out." And there's this great quote from, I think it's Dave Grohl, and Dave Grohl was like, "No, we're not selling out, but if you think so, then so be it. But from my point of view, it's really nice to be able to accidentally leave the light on in my house and, like, go to the store and not have to panic about it," you know? And to me, that's a relatable thing, right? People know what it's like to leave the light on and be like, "Oh, fuck, my bill. You know, I already can't afford it." People don't know what it's like to walk around your house covering up mirrors instead of facing yourself. Like, that, who gives a fuck? People don't know what any of this shit is like. And I guess to argue back against myself, you don't always want your rock stars to be relatable. You know, you do want some kind of like fantasy in there. You know, like again, Motley Crue. You don't watch a Motley Crue video to for relatability. You don't watch girls, girls, girls and think, oh, that's me. But in that case, it's kind of, you know, living through something. You watch the girls, girls, girls video and think, oh, that would be awesome if that was me. You know, I don't think anybody's reading this Rolling Stone interview with Lorde and thinking, oh, it'd be awesome if I was like that. It'd be cool if I was a fucking lunatic who covered up all the mirrors in my house to avoid looking at myself. Just don't look in the fucking mirror. Jesus. I don't know. Maybe I'm focusing on that one part too much. I'm trying to filibuster as I look for the part that I wanted to get to. The lyrics are right on the edge of gross. Half of me believes that entirely, and half of me doesn't believe it at all. You know, I could, you know, nowadays with the way pop stars all want to be like gross in their own way, like kind of overly sexual, I guess. Not that I have a problem with like sexual content in pop music. I don't have a problem with that at all. I just think that's kind of all they do sometimes. Man, I can't believe they're publishing articles that are this long about somebody like Lorde today in a white button down, combat boots, and baggy jeans. That's right, Lorde's wearing combat boots and baggy jeans. How cool. People need to stop working with Jack Antonoff. I think um I think people are getting tired of his production. Isn't he the guy who basically yeah, I think it was Taylor Swift put out the Tortured Poets Department, and I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, right? That's fine. I'll take my beatings for that one, but I am a big Taylor Swift fan. But I have been since 2008. So I'm not a Swiftie. Okay, I've been a fan since 2008, ever since I saw the music video for Love Story on CMT before school one morning, and I fell in love. Of course, who wouldn't? I was a freshman in high school. Um, Jack Antonoff, people are basically saying that he needs, like, he's ruining Taylor Swift, and I'm kind of a little bit in agreement with that. The Tortured Poets Department was not very good. Compared to Midnight's, Midnight's was an awesome album. Midnight's the song Midnight's is one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs, and the Tortured Poets Department was just kind of like a sad mess of cringe, you know? It was just, you know, and I like sad music, don't get me wrong, but God, it was just such a one note album. Just every song was the same, you know? Love of My Life is a good song. That's kind of one of the 2 songs. There's a couple songs on it that I like. You know, Love of My Life is great. A couple others that I can't remember the name of, but yeah. Uh, these girls need to stop recording with Jack Antonoff. And, on the topic of producers, nobody should ever record with Benny Blanco, right? That's his name. I fucking hate that guy. Benny Blanco needs to disappear, like, tomorrow. Can't fucking stand that guy. Um swear to God, I've probably passed up the part I was gonna get to by now, but I've just been talking so much that I'm passing through these things. There's a part in this interview where she talks about how she stopped taking birth control. Because that's what you wanna hear about, right? When you're looking forward to, like, one of your favorite musicians' next album. Like, you're reading this article to hear about her birth control. But anyways, oh, here it is right here. She wrote the album's opening track soon after, as well as Man of the Year, because of course she has to have a song called Man of the Year. She felt like she had superpowers like being off birth control uh, had peeled a film off her life. So, she says toward the end of that year, she went off birth control for the first time since she was 15. Quote from Lorde, "I've now come to see my decision as maybe some quasi right wing programming." Yeah, Everything Everywhere, everybody. I would 100% agree. Taylor Swift, I think no matter what you think of her, she earned her position, a lot of people hate her nowadays, but she did start off as a girl with a guitar, right? Playing country pop music, as much as it's funny how people still think of her as like the girl who writes songs on her bedroom floor. That's obviously not her anymore, but she did start off that way. And I think, that deserves something. Of course, she has her background and her dad basically buying a record label to sign her and all this. But all that aside, her songs were legitimately great and they still are. Like I said, I'm still a big fan of her music. But yeah, her country pop stuff, it was really special. Sometimes you go back and listen to those first 2 or 3 Taylor Swift albums. And yeah, man, they're just really good. Really good. She was writing really good stuff with just, with just a guitar. Um, now I'm getting sidetracked. Yeah, so Lorde says that she got off birth control and she sees her decision as maybe some kind of quasi right-wing programming. And that alone, like, I'm so tired of this shit. What does that have to do with anything? What is right-wing programming? Like, you've been watching right-wing podcasts, so you decided to quit birth control? How about you just, like, went to your doctor and had a discussion about what was best for you, and then you went off birth control? Like, what is I saw somebody else talking about this, and they said it's funny, Laura probably felt like she had to preface the statement about getting off birth control with this because she didn't wanna get attacked because all these, teenagers on Twitter would say something about her. I've been complaining about this ever since the vaccine stuff, how, like, now politics is so involved in everything that, like, your medical decisions are now political, right? With the vaccine stuff, it was if you got the vaccine, you were left wing, and if you didn't, you were right wing. It's like, what if some guy just went to his doctor and they just weighed out his options and discussed what was best for his health? Like, what about that? That's isn't that all it should be? Remember, like, back in the day when you got your flu shot or you didn't get your flu shot, and that was it. I don't usually get the flu, so I didn't get it. Oh, yeah, I hate getting the flu, so I got my flu shot. Like, that's really all it ever is, and that's really all it ever should be. I don't understand why birth control and quasi right-wing programming are even in the same sentence. I don't even actually I've never really heard any political person talk about there's that young gal, what's her name, Brett Cooper? I've seen clips of her talking about it, but she's like a young woman, so that makes sense. She's probably talking to, like, her young woman audience. But I don't understand what right-wingers are out there talking about birth control. Is that a thing? Am I missing out on this? Am I just, like, not seeing this? Because I didn't even understand this quote. This is the biggest thing I stopped on when I was reading through this article, that, apparently, Lorde sees it as right-wing programming to take out your birth control. I don't understand. Somebody has to explain that to me. If I had an audience, right? If I had, like, 100 people that were in chat every time I streamed right now, I would be asking the audience to say, "Can you guys please tell me what am I missing? Like, Where are these right wingers talking about birth control? Genuinely, because I don't know. I was super confused by this quote. But like I said, I did immediately think about how like the vaccine stuff I thought was way too politicized. You know, it was like, bro, people make fucking medical decisions for themselves. Like, why do you have to drag politics into it? And like I said, I've been complaining about that forever now. Like I just started off the stream talking about how the Tommy Lee story that I did that video on was a perfect story because there was no politics, you know? Um, all in all, dude, these Rolling Stone articles about singers, they're not what they used to be. I went to the cupboard and I got the tape out and I did it to myself. She tells me I have this picture staring at myself. I was blonde at the time. It scared me what I saw. I didn't understand it, but felt something was bursting out of me. It was crazy. It was something jagged. We talk about Trump administrations. Yeah, remember again when you could read like an article from your favorite singer or band and they didn't talk about. And also keep in mind that's coming from me, I guess, who grew up like a fan of Green Day when they put out the American Idiot album. And even when they did that, I kind of was tired of hearing, like, even as a kid, I was like, oh, the album is great. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to read about George W. Bush every other day. I just don't care to do that. You know, I think music is escapism for a lot of people. I mean, I guess it depends on what you're listening to music for or what you're writing music about. But it seems like music as a form of escapism is not doing so well. That's why I do love like, I love Sabrina Carpenter. Sabrina Carpenter is just singing about pop music stuff. I don't think I've ever heard a word from her about politics. Charlie XCX. I feel like I've heard a little bit more from her about politics, but as far as, like, her songs, I mean, at least the ones that I like, like, I love Crash, I love 360. Those are just pop songs. 360 is just about her going to the club or whatever, and that's what I want in my pop music. You know? And same thing with Taylor Swift. Alright, I'm done with this article. Same thing with Taylor Swift. People make fun of her for all of her, like, ex-boyfriend songs. She's got all these songs about her ex-boyfriends. Dude, I like that. I would rather listen to a pop song about a singer's ex-boyfriend than, a pop song from a multimillionaire about their political takes. I don't care what Taylor Swift thinks. I don't care who she voted for. But when she's sitting around thinking about her ex-boyfriend, yeah, I want to hear about that because I can take that and apply it to my life, because that's a feeling that applies to everybody, right? Like, even though Taylor Swift is a billionaire now, um, her feelings about an ex lover are probably similar to mine and to everybody else's around the world. But Taylor Swift, as a billionaire, no, probably does not have anywhere near the same political ideas that, I have or that anyone else has around the world. So it's, I like this. There's a great quote from Alice Cooper where he talks about how he doesn't like it when rock stars try to do the politics thing because he sees that as musicians trying to use their influence to kind of sway their teenage fans into, going for the things that they go for. And when teenagers don't understand that stuff, how, hey, you're 15 and you like Lorde or Taylor Swift, they don't really understand how, like, you guys are coming from two different worlds. Lorde and Taylor Swift can have those political ideas that they want. You know, whatever the prices are of stuff is not really going to affect them, but it's going to affect you, or if you're 15, your parents. And I don't think they really have a concept of that. They just see, oh, I read this Rolling Stone article about the singer that I like, and she likes this person, therefore I'm gonna like this person. I just don't care. I don't care anymore. That's honestly been the hardest thing about trying to keep live streaming so consistently on this channel is I look for stories to get into. And yeah, you just can't avoid stories with politics. And I'm like always looking for stories without politics. Even today, 2 out of these 3 stories, like, are political, and I don't want them to be, you know? I don't want them to be, but I would have nothing to talk about, like, you can't avoid it nowadays. You know, you go on Twitter, you follow pages like Pop Crave and TMZ, dude, like, half their tweets are about the president. I'm like, "That's no, I'm TMZ, I'm following you for, like, the trash. I want the Hollywood trash. I don't wanna hear about the president, like, I hear about that enough everywhere else. I'm coming here to get away from that, and it's just impossible. It's just impossible." I guess before I get on to the main event, I don't know. I had a couple things in my Twitter saved in my bookmarks. Sarah Michelle Gellar wants to get back into a Scream movie, which would be great. She's obviously not gonna be in the next Scream. The next Scream is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while, but just have always forgotten to. I'm excited for the new Scream. You know, I like that they're gonna do a Sydney from what I've read, they're gonna do another Sydney Prescott story, like, Sydney's kinda taken back over as the main character. You know, Scream 5, she was kind of a side character. Scream 6, she wasn't in it all. Right? Yeah, she wasn't in it at all, and now she's coming back. It is funny how they're trying to paint it as, like, her triumphant return, and it's like, bro, she was gone for 1 movie, you know? It's not like she was gone for 20 years. So that's a little silly, but regardless, I know a lot of people are, on Twitter are trying to play all tough about it because of politics, right? Like, people really can't just let politics go. People can't just like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care who's making the Scream movie. I like the Scream franchise. I like Ghostface. I like Sydney. So I'm gonna go see the new Scream movie. I have my thoughts on Melissa Barrera being fired the way she was. I don't really like it. I don't believe that. That's kind of like my big conspiracy theory is that I don't believe the reason we got for her firing was the sole reason for her firing. The story is that Melissa Barrera was fired because of her pro-Palestine comments or anti-Israel comments, I guess whichever way you wanna put it. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that was the reason that the studio put out there. I think there was other stuff behind it. But aside from that, I don't like that she was fired. If that was the reason for she's fired for it, I don't like that, especially considering they had Jenna Ortega in the movie, like in what Hollywood actor in their 20s isn't talking about that stuff? So I didn't believe that. Like, why would she be the one that gets fired for it? I think there was some other stuff going on behind the scenes. What else? There's this video of Bonnie Blue getting arrested. I don't think it's real. I think it's obviously gonna turn out to be some kinda stunt. I don't really know. I guess it would be crazy if it was a stunt though, 'cause they look like real cops. So if it was some kind of stunt, she would have, like, real cops, and I don't think she has that kind of pull. I don't think Bonnie Blue is you know, uh, that much of a big deal that she can get real cops to do skits with her, but I just don't really believe it. I don't know. That's a small thing. Um, oh yeah, Scary Movie 6. Looks like we finally have, somewhat of a Scary Movie 6 announcement. I've only seen the first Scary Movie. I think I've only seen the first one. I might have seen the second one, and I haven't seen the first one in years. I really don't even remember shit about it except for, like, the stuff that is now viral or whatever. If this looks funny. It could be funny. I like how it's got the r the requel. It's got the old Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. It's got Megan in the cover. That's pretty funny. The Evil Dies Tonight caption, that's hilarious. Obviously, a play on Halloween Kills. I'm optimistically, what's the word? Like, hesitantly optimistic? Comedy is not the same nowadays, obviously, as it was back when the original Scary Movie came out, you know? Hollywood is not as brave with their comedy. I think that's, like, the best way to put it. You know, they're usually they seem to be a little timid with some things. They won't go to a lot of places that they used to go. And I'm hoping that with this movie, you know, they just throw all that shit aside, just throw caution to the wind and just, you know, do what the scary movie franchise used to do. Do what it's always done. You know, I don't wanna see this hesitant comedy that Hollywood kinda does lately. Uh, Kim Kardashian from Pop Base on Twitter announces that she has graduated from law school after 6 years, which actually probably officially means that Kim Kardashian is smarter than me. Uh, I think people I think people like to talk about celebrities like they're stupid, but I've talked about this before, how I don't like when people do this, even if it's like politicians. You know, people will say like, "Oh, I don't like the president. I think he's stupid." Well, you might not like him, but I'm not gonna say that he is like, you know, intelligently, you know, stupid or whatever. He's more successful than I am, right? Here I am on a YouTube channel with 591 subscribers. I may not like the president, but I'm not going to sit here and call him stupid because he's obviously done something that I haven't figured out yet. You know, I don't have a gold toilet. Um, I'm not taking giant airplane jet bribes from other like countries aren't bribing me with, you know, giant fancy jets. So maybe I'm the stupid one. You know, like I said, I may not like him. I may not like Kim Kardashian, but I won't call her stupid. You know, she graduated law school apparently. So, yeah, good for her. Good for her. It would be cool. You know, the whole idea, I've always said that, you know, people made fun of her with the whole she wants to be like a lawyer for people that have been kind of falsely or unjustly imprisoned. That'd be cool. It'd be cool to do something useful, you know. People constantly complain about these like vapid celebrities with millions of dollars that don't do shit. Well, now she's doing something positive and people are making fun of her for it. And it's like, well, then, you know, which one do you want? It seems like there's really no winning. Because I love OnlyFans girls. OnlyFans star hits goal of sleeping with 1,000 men in 2025, with more than half happening in one day. So that means she had sex with over 500 guys in one day. Um, I don't even know who this dude. OnlyFans girls are doing crazy shit nowadays. Just crazy shit. Annie Knight. That's this girl's name. Annie Knight vowed to bed the massive number this year and hoped at least half of those people would be virgins. But not even 6 months into the year, Knight claimed to news.com.au, she is from Australia, that she has smashed her goal thanks to one act. The Gold Coast based content creator opened applications for men to have sex with her, and 2,000 people applied. On Sunday, 583 men turned up to engage in in an intimate act with her. Who are these guys that are doing these things? You know, you see like Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips have been doing all this stuff where they're basically going out and like doing these gangbangs with like hundreds of dudes. Who are these guys like all over the world that are showing up like in massive numbers to have sex with OnlyFans girls? And it's scary. You see footage, like clips, footage, and pictures, and like these guys are all wearing like ski masks, you know, because they don't want to be embarrassed. And it looks terrifying. It looks like some like terrorist video. It looks like an ISIS beheading video. Like you see like Bonnie Blue surrounded by like 100 guys wearing ski masks. It's like, oh my God. It just looks terrifying. Imagine just getting banged out by like 100 guys in ski masks. Dude, it looks like a fucking terrorist video. It looks like some shit we would have got back in the Bush days, you know? Remember all those scary fucking terrorist videos? Like guys in like a cave in ski masks and they're just like cutting some guy's head off. That's what those videos look like. And it's like, Jesus Christ. All right, well, I'm gonna do the last part. The last part I have planned. Uh, talk about 2025 bingo card type shit. Harvey Weinstein is on Candace Owens' YouTube channel. I had to subscribe for this. I mean, dude, as much as I try to avoid politics, this is perfect Hollywood trash. Like, this is the Hollywood trash I'm looking for. Give me give me what you got when it comes to Harvey Weinstein interviews. The thing about Candace Owens, here's my thing on Candace Owens. I think obviously Candace Owens is like a controversial character. Like, people would certainly call her controversial. A lot of people don't like her, but and I've seen this, I do lurk around Twitter on an anonymous profile. I do think Candace Owens gained some cool points when she told Ben Shapiro that his hat makes him look like a nerd. I think people at least appreciated that. You know, uh, I think when Candace Owens walked into the Daily Wire office for work and she ran into Ben Shapiro at the water cooler and she said, "God damn, Ben, when you gonna take that hat off? You look like a fucking nerd." I think she gained some points with some people that previously didn't like her. I think there's at least that. She's at least got that going for her. She's also somebody that I think all YouTubers should be jealous of because she has, what, 4.26 million subscribers? And she just does whatever the fuck she wants. I mean, she was just talking about how, like, the moon landing was fake, and now she's talking to Harvey Weinstein. This is like, whether you like her or not, any aspiring YouTuber should be incredibly envious of this person. She is basically just like, just whatever she wants to do, she's doing it. And like millions of people are just totally, totally down for it. There's this one part, there's a couple, actually, I have them screenshotted. Um, like parts that I wanted to bring up. Yeah, the times. This is the first part. Harvey Weinstein says something.
Do you know, Harvey, I have a long list of people who came out against you, but a very short list of who actually spoke out for you. One person in particular, which is quite stunning, a guy by the name of Luciano Garignani, an Italian director. He wore a homemade T-shirt in support of you in 2018 that said that you were not guilty. That was the only person that I could find that vocally supported you when all of the heat was coming down on you in 2018.
He's a terrific director, and that's I'm very much appreciate it. But the people who support me are scared to talk. They are frightened to death. They are frightened that they're going to be canceled, that they're not going to be able to work. I try to get, my, people to stand up and even testify in the trial, and nothing, nothing.
And
So, I think that's interesting that Harvey Weinstein says that there are other people in Hollywood who totally support him. They're just too afraid to come forward. Uh, I really don't have much of a comment on whether I think he like belongs in prison or not, or whether he's guilty or innocent or whatever. Obviously, the main point of this interview is him saying, I'm not guilty of the crimes that I've been imprisoned for. But I do believe him when he says that there are other people in Hollywood who totally support him, but they just won't do it publicly. I 1000% believe that. I kind of talked about it. I'm not very interested in the Diddy story, but on the last stream, I did talk about the Diddy story a little bit. And I was basically saying that the Diddy story is not surprising at all because I have like studied obsessively the real story of, the Charles Manson case and all that. And the real story behind all that is how dirty Hollywood is and like how shady and just, how Hollywood is just like the land of delinquency and sin. It's a like a shitty, shady place. So what I was saying is that Diddy is not the only guy doing the stuff that Diddy's getting called out for right now. There's probably 100 other celebrities right now doing stuff that Diddy's on trial for. The story of Harvey Weinstein, right? A powerful producer who is using his position to get girls to do things with him. Is that supposed to be surprising? Like, there's probably 100. Again, there's probably 100 producers doing that right now. There are probably 100 producers in fancy motel rooms with aspiring actresses right now. Like right now, as we're talking, that's probably what's going on in Hollywood right now. So yeah, I totally believe that there are a bunch of people in Hollywood that are like, probably totally down with Harvey Weinstein and probably still talk to him on a daily basis and are probably still friends with him and probably believe him, but no, they're not going to come forward. I think if Harvey Weinstein really wanted to, I don't think he will. I think what he should do is he should just come out with names. He should just make it awkward for those people. Just be like, yeah, so this guy, we're friends. He told me he's got my back. But all of a sudden he changed his mind when I got on trial, That's what I would do if I were him. And I don't know what he's going to do, but I think he's obviously going to do something, right? Like he's doing this interview with Candace Owens. I think he's going to try to do something sometime in the near future. I had another clip. Let me see. I do not have YouTube Premium, so sometimes ads will pop up, and that's the worst thing that happens. Actually, no, this thing about Gwyneth Paltrow is interesting.
Let me guess.
Oh, see, here it is. Here's the ad. I told you guys. I don't have the money. I don't have the money to not pay for ads.
And nothing, nothing.
And jumping into that, by the way, some of the names, there were people who I think remained silent for that reason that you're saying, is they were fearful of being canceled. But some people took it upon themselves to come out and actually condemn you and to say awful things about you. And people, the media was obsessed with speaking about Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't know if you know this. She went on Howard Stern and basically made a very strong statement against you and said that Brad Pitt had to effectively rescue her from you and stand up to you because you made her feel so uncomfortable.
We had one instance in a hotel room where he made a pass at me. And then I really kind of stood up to him. I told my boyfriend at the time, Brad Pitt. We were at
I just have to point out Howard Stern being the name dropper that he has to be the one to mention that it's Brad Pitt. Like Gwyneth Paltrow's like, oh yeah, my boyfriend at the time, and Howard Stern. Make sure my listeners know we're talking about Brad Pitt here on the show.
The opening of Hamlet on Broadway, that Ray Fiennes was in Hamlet, and Harvey was there, and Brad Pitt. It was like the equivalent of throwing him against the wall, energetically. What he did was he leveraged his fame and power to protect me at a time when I didn't have fame or power yet.
Right. Wow. It moves you.
Yeah. It was fantastic. He said, if you ever make her feel uncomfortable again, I'll kill you, or something like that.
That little or something like that, honestly, I think is kind of funny. Like that really made me not believe the whole quote, just the way that she was like, or something like that. I don't know. Again, like I said, I don't really know what I think about Harvey Weinstein. The crimes that he was charged with. But I do believe there are lies in the story, and in that story in particular. I'm sorry, I don't believe that Brad Pitt is going around Hollywood threatening to murder people, But, I understand man-to-man conversation sometimes gets into, I'll kill you, and it's not actually a threat of, homicidal stakes. But, yeah, I do not believe that Brad Pitt is going around threatening to kill famous producers.
It's a complete fabrication, about my relationship with Gwyneth. I'm going to talk about it and just say that I had a meeting with her. She originally was scheduled to do Woody Allen's Everyone Says I Love You. Thank God I was distributing that movie as well. And I managed to substitute Drew Barrymore for Gwyneth. so that Gwyneth could play Emma. And Woody Allen did us a real favor by doing that because we were scheduled to shoot Emma, and I wanted Gwyneth for the role. At the end of the meeting, we had a glass of champagne. As I was walking out the door, I said to her, "I'd love you to give me a massage." And she went, "Yeah." And, that was it. I didn't put my hand on her. I didn't touch her. I definitely made a pass, I guess, you could call it that. But that was the sum total of that situation. She did have Brad call me, and Brad, very manly, very cool, just said, "Don't do that again." And that was that. We made 11 movies together, classic films, Shakespeare in Love, Talented Mr. Ripley, Sliding Doors, just so many great movies and such a great partnership. And now I heard, that she thought the relationship was abusive. Anybody who was there who witnessed that relationship, it just turned into total friends. There's pictures of her hugging me when
Yeah.
I was sick, when I was sick and in the hospital and didn't think I was going to make it in 1999. Gwyneth at the Golden Globe said, "Bomber, we miss you." She got up and made a speech about me. Nobody asked her to do that. In her Academy speech, she thanks me. She's the daughter of a wealthy TV producer, a great man, and Blythe Danner, a great actress, with Steven Spielberg as her godfather. She doesn't have to she could have just said, "Harvey asked me for a massage. I'm never working for him again."
Okay, if you consider yourself
This is like one of those times that I wish I had like booming chats for all my live streams, because yeah, I'm super, I don't know. I usually, when there's two people saying two completely different things, I usually just settle and say it's probably somewhere in the middle, you know? Um, Maybe Harvey was like way too flirtatious with her all the time. And then, but at the same time, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, I don't believe, because I don't know. Those are very good points. I tend to think, like he says, she was friendly to him for years. Like, he literally says they were good friends. There's pictures, there's videos. They made fucking 11 movies together. I tend to believe that adults they have their own, like, autonomy. Is that the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't believe in this. A lot of people do this thing where they'll basically say, somebody that was going to argue against what Harvey Weinstein just said, they would say, "Oh, well, Harvey Weinstein had all the power in the situation, so he was using his power to make her stick around." It's like, well, no, she was a famous actress for a lot, she got power. Like, she was not just this like useless child throughout those entire 11 movies, you know? You could argue that on the first movie or the second movie, I guess, but then when she makes 10 more movies with him, you've got to think, like, there's something there. There's something that's different than I think that what everybody has been told. I guess with that interview series, I think she's gonna upload more videos, because like, I wanna hear him talk about the Rose McGowan thing. There's a little teaser or trailer of the interview that Candace Owens put out. I think it was like yesterday or the day before. And there's a clip where he talks about the Rose McGowan thing. So I know the interview is going to get there, but he basically says, "I paid Rose McGowan $100,000. I settled with her." So there's like money involved in that story. Like, he apparently paid her a settlement. The Rose McGowan thing I'm interested in, because there's that whole story about, she wears basically that see-through dress to that award show with Marilyn Manson back in like 98 or 99. And apparently the story behind that is that that was like a statement. She was making a statement to Harvey Weinstein. I think my take on it is that Harvey was probably creepy sometimes. He admits to it. He says, I made a pass at her. I asked her to give me a massage when we were drinking. Yeah, that's fucking weird. You shouldn't do that. But that's not what we were told about him. We were told that the guy's a full-blown fucking rapist. Like, we were told that this guy was going around, like, we were basically told this guy's a fucking serial rapist, And I don't know much about the trial, because when the story first came out, I really wasn't that interested in it. I didn't really like I said, I just heard the story. Famous, powerful Hollywood producer using his power to have sex with pretty girls. Okay, like I'm not surprised by this. If I woke up with 1 million subscribers on my YouTube channel tomorrow, I would also start having sex with pretty girls, right? Like that's the best way that I would put it. No, I would not do it like creepily, and I wouldn't. I was gonna say I wouldn't use my power to do it, but I would use my name. That's the thing. Like that's what rich and famous people do. It's you go out and you talk to prettier girls than you used to get because now I have 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Now I'm a huge, powerful, multi-million dollar Hollywood producer. Yeah, I'm gonna start doing it with prettier girls than I used to. So stories like that never really surprised me. So I just wasn't really into it back then. I didn't really care what was going on. Candace Owens and him do make a couple mentions of like at the trial there was a bunch of stuff that was left out, like they weren't allowed to bring in certain things. And apparently Candace basically says there was some like egregious stuff. Like there was some egregious evidence that he wasn't allowed to bring in to court. And I've said this before. Again, I think whatever you think about Harvey Weinstein, he is a scapegoat. He's the same as Diddy. There's 100 other Harvey Weinsteins out there right now. But every once in a while, they throw somebody into the fire as a way to say, okay, look at Harvey burning in the fire. Don't look at us. Don't look at us. Go look at Harvey burning in the fire. And that shows you that we're good people because we threw him there. Same with Diddy going on now. They throw Diddy in the fire. They say, don't look at us. Look at the fire. It's burning bright. There's Diddy. He's burning. 10, 20 years later, we're going to get another Diddy. They're going to say, okay, it's time. We got to sacrifice somebody. The heat's starting to rise up a little bit. We got to throw somebody else into the fire, distract the people for a few years, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, the Harvey Weinstein thing, I would just say that I as of right now, I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I'm sure he was a little weird. I'm sure he pushed it. I'm sure he pushed it more than he should. But I have a hard time believing that he was a full-on serial rapist. And then these girls that he was doing that to continued working with him, after they became famous and powerful in their own way. Like he said, him and Gwyneth Paltrow made 11 movies together. Okay, after the first 2 or 3 movies, she's rich and famous and powerful. She can go work for any other studio in Hollywood. She doesn't need Harvey Weinstein after that point. So that's where the next question is okay, well, what about the other 8 movies that she made with him? Why would she choose to do those? Why would she sign contracts and accept money from him and accept movie roles with his company if he really put her through all this torturous shit? If he was really that terrible, why would she continue working with him after she already became rich and powerful on her own? And then it goes back to, I love to talk about how in like the early 2000s, before anybody ever said anything about Harvey Weinstein, there's that interview with Courtney Love from Hole, who I love. I know a lot of people hate her, and I don't think she killed Kurt Cobain. There's that interview with her where she says, if Harvey Weinstein invites you to a party in his hotel room, don't go. And so, once all the Me Too stuff happened, people read into that and they were saying, oh, Courtney Love knew about this and she was warning everybody. She could have also just been saying, yeah, he's a little creepy. Don't go to his room because he's kind of weird when he gets drunk. He might ask you for a massage inappropriately, which, yes, is very inappropriate. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't ask your coworkers for massages when you've been drinking. But that's not serial rapist type shit. That's the thing. That's really the main thing, is that people can be weird and creepy and overly flirtatious without being full-blown serial rapists who need to be put in prison. And again, I could be wrong. That's the other thing. I could go either way. People could comment on this video tomorrow and tell me some stuff that I don't know. And I'd go, okay, yeah, for sure. He is. He is a full-blown serial rapist. I haven't seen anything that makes me think that. Anything believable, anyways, I would say. But, I guess that's my take on it. I wonder how much more she's gonna put out. I guess the whole interview is available, like, on her website, but you have to subscribe to her, and, I'm not gonna pay money to Candace Owens' website just for an interview with Harvey Weinstein. But it is interesting. It's very interesting. Like I said, it falls perfectly under the category of Hollywood trash, so I'm down for it. I think that's really all I got for tonight. I covered my main 3 topics. Probably gonna get out of here. I'll probably be back on, I don't know, maybe later this week, maybe not. I've been lucky with the stories lately. I've gotten some things to talk about, so I liked the way I did it with the Tommy Lee video. I've talked about that before, how I like just doing that. Just doing a video, editing it, uploading it, done, and then let that video go from there. I kinda just do the live streams just because I've always wanted to do live streams, but anyways, yeah, I don't know. I might be on this week, I might not. I'll for sure be back on next week. You never know. You guys know that. You never know. I'll be on whenever. Just stick around. Stick around.
To groove and have a beautiful time together, and that it's only the beginning. Sometimes I think I'm drunk and then I realize I am drunk. Sometimes I think I'm drunk and then